Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Yeah, we're going to talk some football now. The 2022-23 Jamaica Premier League season concludes on Sunday with a final at Sabina Park, but the match is at risk of being boycotted, we're told. Cavalier Football Club is threatening not to honour the fixture unless they are reimbursed the approximately 3 million Jamaican dollars or 20,000 US dollars loss they suffered when their dressing room was broken into while they were contesting the final of the Lynk Cup, the All-Ireland knockout competition. Now, to compound the issue, Cavalier was a no-show at today's pre-final press conference at the headquarters held at the Jamaica Football Federation. When questioned on their no-show, the Chief Executive Officer of the Professional Football Jamaica Limited PFJL, Owen Hill, said he was surprised by their absence. Now, Owen Hill joins us now to talk about this latest development. Owen, as things stand at the moment, what are you hearing from Cavalier, and are football fans justified in being worried whether this match is going to be played or not?
Lance, good evening to you first, and good evening to the viewers. I want to reassure every viewer, every patron, every fan that we will be having a game on Sunday. I am very certain that Cavalier will show up. Again, it's an unfortunate situation where they wouldn't have shown today at the final or the pre-final press conference that we had. But rest assured that, the necessary steps will be, pulled out, and we'll have those consistent dialogue with the Cavalier management team, etc., because we want to ensure that we finish on a high.
Yeah, from the Cavaliers' standpoint, I think it is understandable that they are still mortified by what happened in the dressing room during that Lynk Cup final, especially given the fact that it had happened before. But what has the dialogue been like? Because we've been hearing stories coming through the grapevine for a couple of days now about Cavalier being upset that the organisers haven't spoken to them directly about addressing this issue. So from an outsider standpoint, I think we would understand Cavalier's level of frustration, if you want to call it that. Has there been any dialogue between the PFJL and the Cavalier itself?
Yes, there has been dialogue, and I try not to get into the backing and the forth in, and trying to to ensure that whatever angst there may be amongst the supporters of the local Premier League, we try to allay those fears. So yes, we've had dialogue, up to earlier this morning we had some communication submitted again to the team. They haven't responded as yet, but at the end of the day, I would say yes, we have a very, very amicable relationship, and while we understand the situation that took place at the Knockout Cup Final, we are also saying that let us do it properly. Let's ensure that the necessary steps are taken, and we don't go ahead and put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, so you're saying you have an amicable relationship with Cavalier, the word you just used. Having said that, it sounds as if you had expected them to be at the pre-final press conference today.
Yes, we had expected them to be. Communication was submitted to them about it as well. But at the end of the day, they didn't show for whatever reasons. They haven't provided. There hasn't been any information coming in as to why they were not there. But at the end of the day, let me apologize to anybody who may have been there and wanted to have that discussion with the Cavalier team. But I can assure you that going forward, I will personally reach out again to try and solve this matter in a very timely way, so that the game can go on.
Yeah, you just said, Owen, that you hope that Cavalier will do it properly, as of course I'm sure the ultimate aim is to get the final off on Sunday. What does do it properly look like for you?
Well, for me, it's always following the protocol. So we are having those discussions internally. One of the chief architects of the Cavalier team, Mr. Rudolph Speed, he's the coach, or the technical director rather. He's also a director on the board of the PFJL. So all the communication internally, he would have been privy to those communications. So proper for me suggests that, you know, the board and the management team is on the same page. There's an agreement with the stakeholders who are a part of the discussions, the security company, the organizers of the event, the actual operators of the venue, and then from there a decision is made as to what recourse looks like. However, as you would appreciate, that's not an overnight issue. It's not a matter that you can just easily put to bed without putting the necessary checks and balances in place. Yes, there was a submission made by the team as to what were the items that were missing. We need to corroborate that story as well as to ensure that we are doing justice to the situation as best as possible. So we don't want to rush and make a decision and it is not favorable to either Cavalier nor all the parties involved, but at the same time we're not taking it for granted. So we're having those communication and the dialogue, and hopefully the team can understand that and work with us as best as possible.
Yeah, given what you've just said, that Rudolph Speed would be privy to a lot of the discussions, could it be that Rudolph Speed is at this stage not hearing the type of discourse he would like to hear, which has led us to the position that we're in now, talking about a potential boycott?
I mean, that's a fair question. That's a fair assessment of the situation. But at the same time, I will implore the Cavalier team, Mr. Speed and company, to actually voice that opinion. You know, ensure that if you feel as if the conversations and the discourse is not moving in the direction that you want it to move in, well, state that, but not create any unnecessary angst amongst spectators and supporters alike. Because the truth of the matter is, something like this doesn't benefit football generally. And what we're here to do is to promote and protect football. So, I mean, I can assure you that the game will go on for sure. And again, I will ensure that I reach out personally to Mr. Speed and any other personnel who may require that one-on-one discussion to provide that information that is required to ensure that the game goes on.
Yeah, just to backtrack a little bit, because personally for me, I'm at a loss. Now, when I heard that the dressing room of the Cavalier team had been broken into at the Lynk Cup Final, I was in absolute shock. And part of the reason I was in absolute shock is because this has happened a few times before in the recent past. And so I'm thinking to myself, any organizer who has an event at Sabina Park, especially a football event, because it is football events that we've seen this happen in the recent past, that everything would be put in place to ensure that a similar occurrence did not take part. Yet still it happened. How was this allowed to happen?
That's a $1 million question again, Ricardo. I think we did what we could as best as we can. But at the same time, somebody dropped the ball. A few persons at key points dropped the ball. And it's very hard to pinpoint any one person. Several protocols were breached. But at the same time, what we're doing is addressing these issues as we move. You would appreciate that when that happened on the Friday, immediately on the Monday, we had to, keep going. And we didn't have a reoccurrence because we did put some improved measures in place, stronger security, tighter operational measures, etc. So it's an important point that you've raised, that let us not have this happen again, and hopefully going forward we shouldn't. But we are using the space and the opportunity to appeal to all the stakeholders. I mean, it clearly was somebody who was unscrupulous. There was no sign of forced entry. There was no situation where you could pinpoint that, that door or that window was broken into, and then the dressing room. And in fact, we had security presence at these dressing rooms. So it's a number of factors that we have to consider. But again, going forward, we are hoping that something like this does not reoccur.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, because my understanding is that quite possibly it was the back entrance that would have been used to the dressing room, which incidentally is not the first I would have heard that, even from previous incidents. So can you break down for me what specific protocol would have been put in place to try and not have that situation happen again, given that it had happened previously?
You are in fact correct. I mean, all indicators are pointing to that back entrance. And if you know Sabina Park and the changing room, then you would understand what we're speaking of. However, the protocols that we're putting in place is we're ensuring that the changing rooms are sterile. So it simply means that only the players and the officials are allowed in the changing rooms or the dressing rooms for the different or the respective teams. In that game, we understood that there were other people facilitated, family, friends, fans, people who support the team, and they had access in and out. And I mean, that was a security catastrophe. And then where the doors are located, when you only can open the door from inside. So you had to have left the door open for somebody to enter. And like I said, there was no forced entry. So what we've done as well is to ensure that we have kept those doors locked. So there's only one entrance and exit to the changing rooms for each team. We've ensured that additional police and security personnel will be stationed in the room. We've closed the rooms themselves, so only the team manager has access, meaning a key access to the room when the players leave and when they enter. And we have blocked off the rear entrance to the actual changing facility so that fans and patrons alike will not be able to access that area of the venue if it is that they choose to, engage in that part of the stand, which is the north stand.
Yeah, on the night in question, was there security at that back entrance?
Yes, there was security. Security was patrolling the space, but not stationed at the back entrance. They were patrolling the place, but not stationed. One was stationed at the front entrance, which was closer to the field than the back.
Yeah, given everything that you've just said to me, Owen, about the protocols that have been put in place going forward and since the night of the Lynk Cup Final, one question that I'm sure many watching this interview are asking right now: why wasn't this done? Why wasn't all of this done before the night of the Lynk Cup Final, given the incidents before that?
It's a very good question, and I don't think there's a solid enough answer that I can provide to you. We have tried to implement all the necessary protocols. A lot of times it's a little difficult to execute based on the teams that we're dealing with. Some teams are a little bit more, amenable to these strenuous protocols or onerous protocols, but at the same time, this is a standard going forward. And I think that situation, again, woke up everybody, because probably we are caught napping a little bit. That situation woke up everybody again as to the improved measures that are necessary, especially when we're having games of these magnitude.
Okay, Owen, we're going to leave it there. We're encouraged by your confidence that this match will go ahead without a boycott by the Cavalier team. Of course, it's going to be live on SportsMax on Sunday evening, and we look forward to a cracking final because based on what we saw in the season and the semi-finals, it is expected to be a hot match. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so a tough one here, Mariah and Ricardo, because as we've presented, this is something that had happened before. So it is grossly disappointing to see this happening again.
Yeah, and as Owen said, maybe they were, they fell asleep for some time. They probably didn't expect it to happen again. And I'm just elated to find out that, they're going to put these measures in place. And I pray that none of the footballers ever have to go through that again. Sometimes it takes a lot to get change.
Too much in this case, if you ask me. And listen, I'm delighted to hear that the PFJL and CEO Owen Hill are putting in place these measures now to ensure we do not have a reoccurrence of what we've seen too often now in these matches at Sabina Park. Don't forget there was a similar incident, I think, with Dunbeholden in the final last year. We had an incident with St. George's College in schoolboy football as well. And given those, you would have thought that a lot of these measures would already have been in place, so we would not have had that repeat at the Lynk Cup Final. And so I still congratulate the PFGL for putting in the measures now, realizing that this is a serious matter. But at the same time, Lance and Mariah, I feel for Cavalier more than anything else.
Yeah.
First of all, I think on the night in question, that match should have been stopped at halftime. Because I don't know how you expect these young men to go out there and be fully focused on football when their possessions have just been stolen. Who knows? Someone might have had their last $10,000 in that dressing room. You lose your phone. You don't have any idea how you're going to be able to get another one anytime soon. And so for you to concentrate on 45 minutes of high-level football, dealing with that, in my opinion, was a little bit too much to ask on the night. Of course, some would say they understand why the match was not called off. It's a massive occasion. You have the fans there, whatever the case might be. Fine, but in my opinion, they should not have continued. Having said all of that, I feel it most for Cavalier, because even after that night, these young men, the players, the management staff, the coaches, they're the ones who are left to pick up the pieces of what is left of their possession from what was taken away. It's not easy when you feel invaded almost.
I've always said that.
When something has been taken from you in that manner. And so I really feel it for Cavalier, and I understand the position of Rudolph Speed. No, Owen Hill is also correct. If it is that you are sitting in those meetings and you don't like the direction the conversations are going, then you need to state that. You need to step up and you need to have those conversations with Owen Hill, with the other board members, whatever the situation may be. But having said all of that, I still understand the position of Cavalier, and I understand that they would want to take drastic measures at this stage, because they are saying, please listen to us, especially because we should not have allowed this to happen in the first place.
Yeah, I hear you there, especially the part of feeling violated when you lose your things, because we've lost things before and it's not a good feeling. Yeah,
and the fact is they're going to the same venue on Sunday to play in the final.
Probably the same dressing room.
Yeah, so it's horrifying for Cavalier, but let's hope that things work out well and the game goes on and Cavalier is properly dealt with and properly compensated for the horrific issue that they've gone through here. We have more to come on the SportsMax Zone. Back after this.
Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.